Okay, hi again everybody. Thanks for tuning in to part 11. It's been a bit of a gap since the last part. Thanks very much for the kind comments that have still been coming in. It's much appreciated, and it's those comments that basically mean I'll carry on going. The general opinion seems to be continue with a little bit with Ireland and look at some specific issues, particularly maybe succession planning and maybe Duke titles. So what I'm going to look at in this one is, it's not necessarily a straight let's play, it's still kind of a tutorial. We're now looking at, having become king, what do we do about the duchies and the duke titles. And there'll be a couple of things I would definitely want to look at. One is explaining how you can give someone a duke title, because that actually was slightly confusing to me. I'm probably in the minority of one, but I'm going to go through it anyway. And then the second thing we'll do is we'll look at the problems you have with dukes and what you can try and do to mitigate them in some way, because as we'll see, your various earls of your various counties, you can keep control of them, but the moment you promote someone up to a duke, they can start becoming very ambitious. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at that. But firstly, I'm going to have a quick look at this sort of weird thing I found with the Duke titles and how you actually assign them out, because I didn't quite get it to start with. So forgive me if I'm just explaining this to myself and it's bleeding obvious, but I'll go through it now. Right, so where we were last time, just a brief thing, we became the king. We revoked we increased crown authority so that we could revoke titles, and that caused the Duke of Munster to rebel. I've actually quashed his rebellion now. I didn't want to waste time showing that. He had hardly any troops anyway, so we've put him in prison, and therefore we get to revoke a title. So the first thing I want to look at is you revoke his title. Now we can revoke either his dukedom or either of his counties with no penalty, i.e. no vassal will object. However, we can't do all of them. We could try and get all of them by banishing him, but we do take a bit of a hit there. I said in a previous video incorrectly that you only ever took a 20 hit for banishing. It turns out I think that's bollocks. It seems to be the more titles and the more gold you're taking off him, the more of a hit you take. So I don't think banishing someone when you want to get hold of all their titles in one go is a sort of shortcut, so I apologise for misleading you all there. But anyway, let's go back to this, and we're going to revoke a title. Now usually, as I might have said in a previous video, go up to the top right, we have this domain limit of 7, and you really want to try and use that, because you get your most income and your most troops, i.e. your levy, from direct holdings. Therefore we've currently got room for another 3, so you really want to try and take that holding up. So therefore what I would actually do in the let's play scenario is I would take one of these 2 counties now and leave him as the Duke. However, for the purposes of this, I'm going to take the Duke title simply so I can show you the effect of doing that, and how we can then give that title or give other titles like it out. So let's have a quick, before we do that, let's have a quick look at what our vassals other than him are thinking of us. So we've got this Duke of Connaught bloke, so he's got +7, alright? So let's have a look at, most of it's sort of normal. He didn't like the crown authority, and you see that the important one I want to look at, one of the ones there, is elected titles held. Now if you remember, we have an elective crown succession, and we have all of the de jure dukes, because it's the elective title for the king, so it's the next level down. All of the de jure dukes, of which there's 3, me, him, in fact there's 4 I think actually, is that right? Let's go back and let's do it by rank, start again. No, there is 3. There's these 2 here, independent ones, and then there's me as well, so there's 3, okay? But because I hold the casting vote, they've given me a -15 elected titles held, you see there. Okay, now what happens is, let's go back to where we were, sorry for the flicking again. Now we're going to let's take this duchy title off him, okay? So let's just take it, we've nicked it, right? Now we have a vassal's going to revolt. And now why has that occurred? Well, you can see it quite clearly by just looking at this. All these opinions have changed, and why have they changed? Well, because firstly, you see the elected titles held has doubled, because now we've taken away the elected titles, and now there's only 2 voters, and we hold 3 of the duchies to his 1. So therefore we're now a real dictator in this so-called elective succession. So therefore we get a bigger hit. So you have to be careful of that. And then there's a new one as well, which is just above that, which says too many held duchies. Basically, whatever you are, whether you're a king, an emperor, whatever, you can only hold 2 dukedoms. After that, for every extra dukedom you hold, you get a -10 penalty. That's because dukedoms are the coveted titles. Everybody wants them if they're ambitious. Therefore, if you just hoard them to yourself or for yourself, you'll start taking hits. So therefore, we've seen this. We've taken a hit here. We did have a positive opinion of us before, but now it's a negative opinion, simply because we revoked that dukedom from him. We haven't taken a hit for the actual revocation of it because he was a traitor. However, we have taken a hit because it's given us 3 duke titles now. 1, 2, 3. So therefore, what we now want to look at is how you give the duke title over. Well, we do want to give a duke title over, and I'm going to show you this little thing that confused the hell out of me to start with. So bear with me for this one as I faff about. What I want to do is show you, therefore, before we get on to how you can, the problems with dukes generally and all that, I want to just show you a little thing that confused the hell out of me. Let's assume, therefore, we want to give this duke title out because we're taking too many hits. So therefore, we'll come on to who you'd give that to. But let's assume you want to give it to someone who doesn't have any titles at the moment. So say you decide we'll give him this duke title here. What's this one? Meath. Leinster. Meath. Where's Leinster? That one there. Let's give that one Meath, right? So let's find anyone at the moment who's in our court. So let's use our rank and look for someone who's not. Let's look for he's our dynasty. If we could say his name, it would be cool. But anyway, let's assume like this guy, as you see, he's got nothing at the moment. So let's say we want to make him the Earl of Meath, okay? Because we want to ditch one of the Earl titles. So let's grant a landed title. And as you see, this is what used to confuse me. There is no Earl of Meath to give him. You can only give him a county title. However, if you click this include lower titles, then it does appear. And that didn't make any sense to me. So then if you clicked on the Duchy of Meath, you see it gives you all titles under it. And bearing in mind that all titles under it are ours, that's the Earl of Dublin and the Earl of Kildare, this is going to give him all of those 3 titles, right? Because we're including lower titles. So if you unclick that now, you'll see that it actually just won't let you do it. In other words, you can't just make him the Duke, alright? In this case, we own both these counties, so it's going to give him this dukedom, plus we'll lose those 2 counties. So if we did this, and I won't do it, we will actually lose all the income from that, and he'll become very powerful. He'll have basically a dukedom and the 2 counties. So let's see if we can do Leinster instead. So if you do Leinster, you see it's slightly different. It's the same thing in that all titles are going, but this time one of them isn't going to be granted to him, the county of Ossory, and that's because Ossory isn't ours directly to grant. It's already held by him. So what is going to happen now, sorry about this, stop flicking, you idiot. I haven't been drinking, honestly. Let's go back to our mate. Where is he? Where's Silly Bollocks gone? I should stop calling them Silly Bollocks, shouldn't I? There he is. Okay. So let's assume instead we're going to go back and give him Leinster. In this case, we have no choice but to give him the duchy and our title plus the vassal of Ossory, who's currently our vassal, will go over. So again, we'll lose loads. So therefore, what the fuck's going on? Well, it's a simple thing, and this is what is probably obvious to every man and his dog other than me, which is that you can't grant a duke title to someone who isn't landed. You can't make someone a duke if they don't have their own landed title. A landed title would be, for instance, an earl, i.e. the earl of the whole county, or one of these things here. If he's like the mayor of Dublin, or he owns the city of Dublin, well then you can make him a duke. But if he doesn't have anything to start with, you can't then make him a duke. The only way you can make him a duke is if you automatically give him all the landed titles that go with it, and that's a bit of a mare. So how would you do this? Well, let's assume we're ignoring our domain limit here, right, because we've gone off at a tangent. Let's assume therefore you're obsessed with making this bloke the the Duke of Meath. So what you decide to do, you know you don't want to give him everything, but let's give him Kildare as an earl. So we'll do it in 2 steps, right? So we'll find this bloke again, and I'll keep fecking about until I remember this bloke's name. It's him, in it, with a comedy beard. Yeah. So that's what we're now going to do. Is let's see how you would do the duchy. So it says grant landed title. So now, as you see, as we saw before, you can't give him the Duke title, but what we'll do is we'll make him landed. So let's give him that, Kildare. We give him Kildare, he likes that, he gets the little mini vassals below hand, send it to him, he looks happy. Okay, now if you go grant landed title, well, funnily enough, the Duke titles are all available to him. And why are the Duke titles now available? Because he's now landed aristocracy, which means you can now make him a Duke title. You don't have to do any of this lower titles, bollocks, blah blah blah. When you give him the duchy, you see there's none of this and all the titles below business, because now it's not going to force you to give any other titles. In fact, you can give him any dukedom, although it will give you the vassals that go with that dukedom. But now he's not automatically just getting all the titles. So if we give him that, the Duchy of Meath, as we wanted to do, what we've now ended up doing is he's now got 2 titles. He's got the county, and then we made him the duke. Now, of course, that's not great for our game because we've actually lost one of the counties here, which, as I said before, I want to try and get that thing up. But this was just a little side note, I think, just to show how, to me, it used to confuse the crap out of me when I tried to give duke titles to people. I seem to have sometimes, if they weren't landed, I had a choice of either giving them everything below or nothing. Giving them the Duke title and everything below, or not giving them anything. So therefore the way around this is to, firstly, if you want to give a Duke title to someone who you particularly favour, and we'll come on to reasons why you might, and they don't have any land at the moment, then what you need to do first is make them landed by giving them a single county, or even just giving them the sort of one of these minor things here, like a city. Once you've done that, you can make them a duke, and you can make them a duke of anything without having to give them more direct land. So that's just something to be aware of. I hope that's kind of vaguely clear. But what I want to look at now is some things about what you should worry about with giving some of your titles and some of the issues you should have. So we're going to come on to that now. Okay, I've reset this back to where we were at the start of the vid, just because I want to show you some of the impacts of giving these titles out. So we've back to with old the bloke here who rebelled. We're back to him in prison. So once again, I'm going to just revoke his dukedom title. Okay. So again, we're back to where we were, in that we have our vassals are a bit angry with us, blah blah blah, because we've got too many titles, right? So let's assume you want to make someone, you want to give someone some titles, ultimately a duke title, but also you need to give them some landing titles. Now, what should you kind of look for? Well, the best thing to do, I think, is, assuming you don't want to give it to someone who's already landed, which is probably a good idea, because one of the key things you want to do is you want to keep your dukes weak. And to that end, you don't want to give a duke all of the counties underneath his dukedom, because they'll all be his vassals, which means he has a call on all their levies, and therefore he is quite strong relative. Particularly, you know, in this situation here, where if you gave someone this dukedom here, or if you gave someone the dukedom of Ulster, which, you know, that bit there, these four here, and you gave them all those titles, well then they've got a mini little kingdom, and if they got together with one other person, you could be in serious trouble. So one of the first things you should do really is, if you have to give your dukedom titles out because you can't hold too many, but really you want to make sure that the dukes you have, or you create, only have one landed holding. It doesn't have. It could usually, it'll be the county, as we saw. You might give him the county, or it could just be one of the cities below hand. I mean, that's even better theoretically, because that makes him even weaker. But the idea is you want to try and give it to someone who doesn't have loads of other land. So there's a few things to worry about there. How would you do that? So the first thing I would do is I'll just go up to the search thing and go up and have a look for. Firstly, you probably want men. Okay, and you want no ruler. In other words, you don't want somebody who's already an earl. So go for that. Do things like set your religion and your culture the same, okay? And set it as an adult as well. Then, and this search thing I hate really, but click on dynasty, okay, and then move this thing down until you see the little blood things saying these are your people, okay. So you have all these. You want to ideally give it someone in your dynasty, because if it all goes Pete Tong at some point, at least then you'll continue playing as them. So what I want to do then is have a quick look at the first thing to look for, and one of the key things to look for is the traits. And what in particular you're looking for? Well, what you want to do is avoid this ambitious. Now this guy here is the marshal, right? He's got some, he's a decent marshal. He's a bit arbitrary, which sometimes isn't good for people rebelling under him. But the one thing you want to avoid is ambitious. And why do you want to avoid that? Well, it's as follows. Let's click on this guy here. Okay, now what I'm going to do is use this whole right-clicky, mark him for special interest, so I don't keep fucking about if I want to come back to him. So let's have a look at his opinion of us, right? At the moment he doesn't mind us, we're okay. So let's assume that we want to give him an earldom, or say a duke title, alright? You would have thought he'd love us. But let's have a look at what happens. So let's do what we did previously and give Kildare and then this dukedom over to him and see what happens. Okay, so we come back to him. And let's firstly, we know we have to give him a county first because he has to be landed. So let's give him Kildare. This is what we did last time, remember, but I've reset it. So we give him Kildare. Now his opinion of us is 12. Now, bizarrely, we've just given him Kildare, yet he doesn't like us anymore. And why does he not like us anymore? Because suddenly the too many held duchies and the elector titles come in, but also look at the one second from the bottom. His ambitious trait suddenly starts to take over. Beforehand that wasn't there, and he had like a plus 11, 12, whatever it was opinion of us, right? Because of all these things like prestige. But now, despite the fact we've got a plus 40 for granted him a county, we've taken a massive hit towards the bottom, particularly the ambitious title. Because now he's basically going, well, I'm really ambitious, you've given me a county, well I want more, I'm ambitious. Let's give him the actual duchy title as well and see what that does. It should, yeah, okay, that's made him happier because we've got the granted a duchy. But if you look at what we've ultimately done there, we've given away one of our counties and a dukedom, which is worth plus 100, as you can see, 40 and 60. Yet we've only benefited to the tune of about 20 odd. And why? Because if you look at what happens, he's ambitious, as we saw, that hits us with 50. He's now, because we've made him the duke, he now wants the other county, he wants Dublin. So that's hitting him the minus 25, right? Now, therefore, what you've done by picking someone who's ambitious is you've screwed yourself for 50, okay, up front. Even though most others will probably find they desire the county Dublin, blah blah blah. You've got an immediate minus 50 from him being ambitious. So therefore, the first tip I would say when you're going through your searching for people is avoid this little crown in a bubble. In a thought bubble, because the moment you give them a sniff of power, they'll want more, and you will have huge problems with him. Okay, so what should you do instead? Well, I'm gonna reload the game again, back to where we were, so that I can pick someone else. So I'll see you again shortly. Right, welcome back again. Sorry for the reloading and all that, but this isn't really necessarily the let's play bit, this is just the duke stuff. So we're back to where we were again. We've got this guy in prison because he was a duke and we beat him, so we're going to take his duchy title off him, right? So we got that back. Some people don't like it because we've got too many whatever. So we go and search again for people to give these titles to, okay? So we'll do the old sort by dynasty, bloody bloody blah. There we are. Now we talked beforehand with where was he? Where was our ambitious fella? Maybe he wasn't a dynasty member. I can't remember. But anyway, what are you looking for in traits? You want to avoid the ambitious because we've just seen what that does. It takes someone who. Oh, it was this guy. In actual fact, he wasn't a dynasty member, so I was an idiot probably giving it to him anyway, but we saw he was ambitious, I think. But what are you looking for? What you're actually looking for is this. Content. Because if you look at this guy, he's got an opinion of us at 54, and you can see we're already getting a content. You can also see other things as well. He's a hunter, and we're a hunter, so we get little bonuses there. This is what you should be looking for. So you don't want to be sort of... You do want to take a little bit of time to work out what... the traits are, to see whether someone's worth having. You've got stuff, you know, some people might appear to like you, but remember to look at the traits, because as we saw on other things, someone who appears to like you, that's because their ambitious trait is kind of hidden with their at the moment. But the moment you give them a bit of power, they go mental. So my advice now would be, let's go with this guy. He's content, and he's a hunter as well, and we are, and he likes that. So let's do what we did last time. Let's go. We're at plus 54. So let's do what we did last time. Let's give him Kildare. Okay. Now last time, remember, it went massively minus. It hasn't gone up a lot because we've got the elector titles held and the too many duchies held, but it hasn't been a massive bomb as it was last time. Okay. Now let's give him the Duchy of Meath, which is what we did last time as well, and you see he's loving us. So he still desires the County of Dublin like the other bloke did, but you can see the effect that he's content. Last time we had a minus 50 for ambitious, but we're now getting a plus 50 for content. Okay, so that's a swing of 100. In other words, this guy is not going to rebel against you whilst he remains content. Now you can lose the content trait. You see it sometimes when you get it yourself. You will get a message saying there's too much to be done, I need to get on with it, and it will say you lose the content trait. So that can go, but these are the sort of people you want to look for. Okay, so that's one of my first things to do, is look for the traits. Always, if you're giving duke titles, avoid the ambitious trait. If you're giving just the lower titles, that's okay, it doesn't matter. They'll be a pain in the backside, but it won't kill you. But the duke titles, as you can see, the moment you give them to someone, you get loads of other minuses, like the title claimant, and then they'll desire these other counties. And as we said, you can get rid of that desires the county of Dublin by giving him Dublin, but then what you're doing is you're giving him a power base. You're giving him the duke title plus the 2 counties. And despite the fact that he is ambitious, he's not ambitious, you don't want to do that. So the first thing to do is look for those traits. The second thing also to do is look for his heir, to see what the traits his heir is going to have. Make sure his heir isn't going to be ambitious as well, because that can sometimes be a pain in the arse. You know, you can give this title out to him, he's got opinion of 100, everything looks nice, he then dies or gets assassinated, and he gets taken over by some complete nutjob who is ambitious, and before you know it, particularly if you've given this bloke loads of power, like giving him Dublin, you suddenly find you've got a real pain in the arse on your hands. So that's the first thing to do. Second thing to do is look at his heir. Also, when you're looking at the heir, particularly as you get bigger, make sure that you look at the heir of everybody who's new, because sometimes what can happen, I played a game where I ended up managing to get all of this Castile area put together. However, I was merrily going along granting new duchies to new dynasty members, and suddenly I found out that some of them were the sons of other ones, and when the parent died, they ended up inheriting sort of 2 or 3 dukedoms. So it ended up consolidating all these dukedoms. So you need to make sure that they're not the heir to something else. You know, if you make a new duke, you know, the worst thing you could do at the moment is make a Duke of Meath that you've done for this guy here, and then find that he's the son of the current Duke of Connaught, and when he dies he gets the Dukedom of Connaught. Suddenly you're now getting this bloke who's got a hell of a lot of power. It might not be a huge trauma now because he's content, but if he loses that trait or he dies and his son or nephew takes over, well then you could be in a whole load of trouble. So those are some of the things you need to worry about there. So look at the traits. Ideally, you know, avoid ambitious, seek out the content trait, and then also just have a quick squiz to see if there's other traits that are complementary, but don't be too worried about that. Also then, you want to give out titles. This is something, so you know, sort by opinion, then go down and see who doesn't like you. So the Earl of Ulster is a bit arsed off with us at the moment. He doesn't like the Crown Authority and the elected titles. So, you know, again, if you've got these honorary titles, just, you know, lob him that as well. Okay, it gets you more levy and will start getting you tax if you get him up above 0 there. So again, make use of the honorary titles. I always think it's useful to leave 1 honorary title free in case you get someone who's going really mad. Okay. The other thing also you can do is, if you've got a troublesome vassal, you can actually transfer that vassal to someone else. At the moment you see this guy is the Earl of Thorman, okay? He's actually the Earl of these two counties, right? Now, I'm not sure if we can do this, but let's try. Let's go to this guy. Transfer vassalage, right? Select a vassal to transfer to him. I don't know if it'll let us do it, because yeah, there you are. Give him him. In other words, what you're now doing is you're now saying this guy is now reporting up there. So give him that. Okay, he'll love you even more because he's giving you a vassal. But if you look at this, well, he's disappeared. He's not our direct vassal. So it's helpful to get rid of him, particularly if you look at things like crown law succession. When you want to change the crown laws, you must have, or some of these other things here, you must have often no negative opinion. Sorry, there you go. If you want to change the succession laws, no vassal has a negative opinion of you. So you know last time that bloke who was in prison had -100, well, we're fucked. So the one thing you can do is transfer him. And what have we actually done? We've therefore kind of frigged with this dukedom now. If you look at this Duchy of Meath, the Duchy of Meath is now, in real terms, become the county of Kildare and these two counties here. Now in de jure terms it remains as it always was, those two. But what we've actually done is we've screwed up the legal de jure thing, and we've basically made the Duke of Meath the Duke over these three counties. Now that's not a problem. It can get a bit messy sometimes, but that's what we've done. And you can see that it's kind of all, there's a line around there showing where his own little, you can see there, the direct vassals. Those three have gone together there. So you can just hive off your sort of dodgy blokes if you want by giving them to someone else. But again, you've got to be careful, because again, remember, you're making this guy more powerful because you're giving him more vassals, which means he has more titles on him. Plus, he won't release him from prison. He's in our prison. But you can see this guy's opinion of us was -100. It's now only -1 of this bloke. So it changes quite a lot. What else do we want to look at for? We've talked about therefore looking at the traits. Don't give too much land out. Make sure you've got the crown authority so you can revoke titles. We did that last time, getting it to low. The other thing you can do as well is, if you're having a problem, is you can try and assassinate someone. If you're having a real problem with one of the dukes, let's have a look at the Duke of Connell. He only likes us by 7. In actual fact, here you can see that how it doesn't always work. He wants a county, and he's content, but he's still not really loving us too much here. But his heir is possibly content, so we could try and assassinate. What you want to do sometimes is, if you find this guy's, I wouldn't do it here, but if this guy had a -50 opinion of you, but his heir was content and was a nice bloke, then you might decide to assassinate him. I'm not too sure why he's only got a 7, because he is content there, but he didn't like the crown authority that we increased. So traits are a bit waffly, but traits are important. The other thing therefore to care about is, if you've got too many duke titles and you can't find anyone suitable, one of the other tips is to try and find someone in here who's really old and doesn't have any kids. Because if you get someone who's really old and doesn't have any kids, marry them to someone else who's really old, chances are they won't have any kids at all. And what you can do is park the titles with them. When they die, the heir should be you, and they'll revert. So that's one other tip. Then another little thing I want to talk about briefly, just before the end, is another good place to go often is give it to your heir. If you look at your heir, he's going to like us because we're the chosen successor, right? So you could give him your title, a landed title as well. My only issue with doing that, and there's two issues really, is make sure you don't do that until he's of age. The reason being that if you make him, say, I don't know, even if it's not a dukedom, just give him a county like Leinster, what he does is he goes to Leinster and he's out of your control. Basically that means you won't be able to, well, you could be his guardian, but you won't be able to arrange a marriage for him. And since he's your heir, you want to be arranging the marriages for you. As you saw here, we picked her, and we picked her for stewardship. So you don't want to just let him marry any old Tom, Dick and Harry. So if you're going to give titles to your heirs because you've got too many, that's good, and the chances are, particularly if he's your successor, he'll be loyal to you. But remember, only do it once they're married, so that you can pick who they get married to. And secondly, remember that it's only a temporary solution. If we'd given him the extra Duke title, the moment we died, he would inherit all of our Duke titles plus the one he's already got, which would put him over the limit of 2, and so you'd be looking again. But that is a good place to go. So anyway, I'm kind of running out of time, otherwise the vid will be too big. Apologise that it's a bit all over the shop again. So I will probably continue with the Let's Play next time, just to see where we get with it. And I will talk about this in a bit more detail because this was rushed. So until then, I'll see you later.